Her name was Maya Collins, and from the moment she could remember, she had always believed in two things: that hard work could take you anywhere, and that dreams, no matter how big, were worth chasing. At 17, she carried herself with a quiet confidence that made teachers notice, classmates admire, and friends rely on her for advice. Maya wasn't flashy. She didn't crave attention or try to be the center of every conversation. She was smart, ambitious, and precise, someone who carefully mapped out her future like a well-planned route. Her bedroom walls were covered in college brochures, motivational quotes, and sticky notes detailing her goals: a scholarship to Whitmore University, a degree in business administration, and one day, owning a company that would make a difference. Every morning, she woke up before the sun, brewed a cup of coffee, and reviewed her notes for hours before school, while other students slept in or scrolled through their phones. Maya studied financial formulas, read economics books, and planned her next steps. She wanted to be unstoppable, and she knew that even the smallest delay could cost her everything. But Maya wasn't all work and no heart. Beneath the sharp mind and determined exterior was a girl who still believed in love, friendship, and loyalty. She trusted deeply, sometimes too deeply, and gave her heart freely to those who earned it. And that faith, her unwavering belief that people could be as good as she imagined, would be both her greatest strength and the opening through which betrayal would strike at school. She was respected, but not envied, admired, but not feared. Her friends often joked that she was boringly perfect, but Maya didn't mind. Perfection, to her, wasn't about showing off, it was about being prepared. Every exam she aced, every leadership role she earned, and every late-night study session was a brick in the foundation of the future she was building. And then there was Alex. From the first time he smiled at her across the library, Maya felt a spark she couldn't ignore. He was everything she wasn't: impulsive, charming, reckless, but with a warmth and humor that made her laugh like she hadn't in years. It was intoxicating, and soon the focus that had defined her life became tinged with butterflies and longing. She wanted to believe in him, to trust him, and to imagine a life where her dreams and his presence could coexist. But even as her heart opened to love, her mind reminded her of what she had worked for. She refused to let distractions derail her ambitions. Her dream of Whitmore University wasn't just a goal, it was a promise to herself, a contract written in blood, sweat, and endless nights of studying. Nothing and no one could jeopardize that. Little did Maya know, it wasn't the chaos of life she needed to fear, but the person she trusted most. Maya Collins walked through the hallways of Riverview High with the calm determination of someone who knew exactly where she was going. The clatter of lockers, the laughter of classmates, and the buzzing fluorescent lights barely registered in her mind. She had her backpack slung over one shoulder, notebooks neatly stacked, and a spiral-bound planner tucked under her arm. Every page of it contained schedules, goals, and reminders, small but essential steps toward the scholarship she had been dreaming of for years. School was a stage of distractions, but Maya had learned to navigate it with focus. Her classmates were busy with gossip, social media, and weekend plans, while she was already thinking 3 months ahead: SAT prep, college essays, summer internships. Teachers noticed her work ethic. Classmates sometimes envied it. But Maya didn't care about admiration or enviation, cared about results. Every grade she earned, every honor she received, was a brick in the foundation of the future she was building. Despite her seriousness, she wasn't a loner. She had friends few but genuine, and she cherished them. They were the people she trusted with her secrets, who celebrated her wins, and who reminded her to breathe when her ambition became overwhelming. Among them, though, there was one person who stood out: Alex Reynolds. Alex was the kind of boy who could light up a room just by walking in. His smile was infectious, his laugh easy, and his charm effortless. He was everything Maya wasn't: spontaneous, unpredictable, and dangerously magnetic. From the moment he leaned across the library table to ask about her economics notes, she felt something stir inside her. It wasn't just attraction. It was a feeling she hadn't expected, one that made her stomach flutter and her carefully ordered world feel different. Their friendship developed quickly. Alex had a way of making ordinary moments feel extraordinary. Lunch breaks, late-night walks after study sessions, whispered jokes in the library when no one was looking. He teased her about her planner, about her obsession with grades, but he also supported her in ways she hadn't realized she needed. He believed in her dreams, celebrated her victories, and somehow made her ambition feel less like a burden and more like a shared adventure. Maya's heart, however, was guarded. She had grown up believing that trust had to be earned, and love was something you protected fiercely. She wanted to believe in Alex, but not blindly. She had worked too hard to let emotions cloud her judgment. Still, the more time they spent together, the more her walls crumbled, brick by brick, until she was letting him in. Evenings at Maya's house were a mixture of routine and inspiration. Her parents, both teachers, had instilled in her a respect for discipline and learning, and they encouraged her ambitions. Her father would sit with her over dinner, asking about her day, quizzing her on equations or economic theories. Her mother, gentle but firm, reminded her to rest and not let stress take over. They didn't just support her, they believed in her unconditionally. But Maya's life wasn't just textbooks and family. There were small moments of joy: Friday night movies with friends, impromptu coffee runs with Alex, and the quiet satisfaction of completing a project ahead of schedule. These little sparks reminded her that ambition didn't mean sacrificing happiness, and that life could be balanced if she played her cards right. Then there were dreams, big, bold, unstoppable dreams. Maya envisioned herself at Whitmore University, walking through the ivy-covered campus with a scholarship in hand, making a name for herself and paving the way for a career that mattered. She imagined a life where she controlled her destiny, where her talent and hard work dictated her path, and where failure was a concept she could sidestep with preparation. Alex was a part of that vision, though not the focus. He was someone who made the journey lighter, someone whose presence made even the toughest days bearable. Together, they laughed, they planned, they imagined a future filled with possibilities. And in those moments, Maya allowed herself to believe in something more than her ambition. She allowed herself to believe in love. School life continued in its usual rhythm: homework, tests, club meetings, but beneath the surface, tension was quietly brewing. Not in the world, not in the school, but in the delicate balance of trust Maya had placed in Alex. She didn't notice it yet, but the very person she relied on, the one who had seemed inseparable from her life, would soon become the source of her greatest heartbreak. It started subtly. A late-night phone call that went unanswered, a flippant comment that didn't add up, a rumor whispered in the cafeteria that made her stomach knot. Maya's heart, once light and trusting, began to sense an undercurrent of deception. But she brushed it away. She wanted to believe in Alex. She had always believed in the good in people, By the time she realized something was terribly wrong, it would be too late. The betrayal would not just break her heart. It would shatter her life, ruin her reputation, and set the stage for a story of loss, resilience, and eventual revenge. For now, though, Maya walked the hallways with her head held high, her dreams burning bright, her trust unshaken. She didn't know that the world was about to teach her a lesson in pain, betrayal, and the price of believing too much in someone else. Maya had never felt the kind of panic that hit her that Thursday evening. She had stayed after school for extra tutoring, helping Alex review for the economics final. They had been laughing, teasing each other, and Maya had thought everything was perfect. She had even let her guard down, smiling at his jokes, enjoying the lightness of his presence. But when she got home, her phone buzzed relentlessly. Notifications from Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. Every app she opened seemed to scream her name. Confused, she scrolled, her fingers trembling. Then she saw it. The first post made her chest tighten. A photo of Alex, not alone, not with a friend, with another girl. They were laughing, leaning close, and the caption cruelly tagged with her full name said, "When you think you're perfect, someone will always come along and ruin your world." #cheat alert, #truth. Hurts. Her stomach dropped. Her hands shook. She blinked at the screen, hoping, praying that it wasn't real. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe it wasn't Alex. Maybe she was misreading everything. Then came the messages, group chats of people she knew, tagging her, sending screenshots, whispering rumors she couldn't control. The school she had loved, the life she had built, suddenly felt like it was collapsing around her. Maya tried calling Alex. Nothing. No answer. Her heart pounded. The apartment she shared with the quiet certainty of her parents' love now felt suffocating, small, and betraying. Her phone buzzed again this time. It was a video, Alex, laughing, calling her name, kissing another girl, as if daring her to. See, the pain that erupted in her chest was unlike anything she had experienced before. Betrayal was one thing. Humiliation, that cut deeper. Maya sank to the floor, her back against the wall, staring blankly at the phone. She felt frozen, trapped between disbelief and the unbearable sting of reality. She had trusted him with her heart. She had imagined a future with him, and in a single night, he had stolen not just her love, but her dignity. The next morning, the hallways of Riverview High were buzzing with whispers. Screens flashed with gossip, students laughed at jokes she wasn't part of, and teachers avoided her gaze. She felt invisible and simultaneously under a spotlight that burned. The world she had known, the respect she had earned, seemed to vanish. Overnight, even her closest friends, the ones she thought she could trust, whispered behind her back. Some believed Alex's version of events. Some laughed at the memes circulating online. She walked through the corridors like a ghost, numb, barely able to lift her head. When she tried to confront Alex in person, the scene was worse. He was leaning casually against his locker, smiling at someone else, acting as if nothing had happened. "Maya, hey," he said, his tone casual, almost rehearsed. "It's not what you think. Come on, don't be dramatic." Her voice trembled. "Not what I think. I saw the pictures. I saw the videos. Why would you do this?" Alex shrugged, a smirk tugging at his lips. "It's not a big deal. Everyone makes mistakes." Maya's chest tightened. Mistakes. Publicly humiliating someone. Ruining her reputation. She couldn't breathe. Her dreams of finishing school with dignity, getting the Whitmore scholarship, moving on to college. They all seemed to slip through her fingers. That afternoon, she tried to escape it all. She retreated to the library, to her safe space, to her books, and tried to focus on studying. But every page blurred into a nightmare of betrayal, every formula and equation meaningless. Her heart ached, her mind raced, and the tears she refused to shed at school finally came. She remembered her mother's voice. "You are stronger than this, Maya. Never let anyone take your fire from you." But in that moment, fire felt like smoke. Pain had consumed her ambition. Humiliation had stolen her confidence. By evening, she made a choice, a quiet, determined choice. She couldn't stay here. She couldn't face Alex, the school, the gossip, or the girl who had stepped into her life to ruin it. She would disappear. Not forever, perhaps, but long enough to rebuild. Packing a small bag, she left a note for her parents, vague but loving. "I need to find my path. I'll be back stronger. Don't worry." She didn't look back. The life she had known, the friendships, the laughter, the love was gone. In its place was pain. And in that pain, a seed of resolve took root. She whispered to herself the first words of a vow that would shape her future. "One day, he will pay. One day, the world will see the truth, and I will rise stronger than ever." Maya left the school that night, under the cover of darkness, carrying nothing but a backpack, a notebook, and a heart full of determination. The world she had trusted had betrayed her, but she would not allow herself to be broken. Not completely, and as she walked toward an uncertain future, she knew one thing with perfect clarity. Revenge was not about anger. Revenge was about power, control, and one day she would have it all. Asterisk, Maya Collins had left Riverview High, her friends, and her life behind, but the memories followed her everywhere. In the tiny apartment she rented in a city far from her old life, silence became both her companion and her tormentor. She walked through the rooms alone, each one echoing with a past that had been stolen from her. Laughter in the hallways, whispered promises, and the warmth of love she had once trusted. At night, she would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding, mind racing. Images of Alex's smirk, the cruel memes, and the videos that had spread like wildfire filled her mind. Tears came quietly, in the dark, with no one to see. Each sob was a reminder of the life she had lost, her reputation shattered, her scholarship slipping further from her grasp, her dreams of Whitmore University seemingly crushed. But in that grief, something else began to stir. A fire. Maya realized that she could not afford to stay broken. Pain alone would not fix her life. Only action, preparation, and resilience could. She had been betrayed, yes, but she could not allow betrayal to define her. If anything, it had to fuel her. Her first months in the city were the hardest. She worked odd jobs, bartending, tutoring, freelance writing, anything to survive. But she never let herself get distracted from her ultimate goal: rebuilding, improving, and reclaiming control over her life. She enrolled in night classes, learning business, finance, and digital marketing. Every article she read, every spreadsheet she mastered, every online course she completed was a step toward a life Alex could never touch. Maya became meticulous, disciplined, almost obsessive. She kept a journal, not of her heartbreak, but of her plans. "I will build a life so strong that no one can tear it down. I will become untouchable, and one day the world will see him for what he truly is." She immersed herself in self-improvement. Yoga, running at dawn, networking events, online webinars. She transformed her pain into power. While the world had mocked her in high school, she would now command respect, influence, and authority. Yet even as she grew, the scars remained. She couldn't trust easily anymore. Every compliment made her wary. Every gesture of kindness was measured against potential betrayal. But this caution didn't weaken her, it sharpened her. She became strategic, patient, calculating. The girl who had been naive and trusting in Riverview High was gone, replaced by someone who had learned that power was earned, not given. Through the years, Maya's career flourished quietly. She founded a small consulting firm, helping struggling startups find their footing. Her reputation grew, slowly at first, then exponentially as her work spoke for itself. She learned the intricacies of digital influence, reputation management, and public relations skills she would one day need. She wasn't just surviving, she was preparing for the moment when her past would collide with her present. And yet, despite her growing success, the memory of Alex lingered like a shadow. She never sought him out, never allowed herself to obsess, but she never forgot. His betrayal had been the catalyst for her transformation, and she understood that her ultimate victory would not be petty revenge. It would be justice, the kind that only comes from rising above, from taking control of the narrative, from ensuring the person who hurt you sees the consequences of their actions reflected in the world around them. One night, as she closed her laptop after drafting a business proposal, she stared at her reflection in the glass window. The city light shimmered behind her, but all she saw was herself, stronger, sharper, untouchable. She whispered softly, the words solidifying into a vow that would guide her for years to come. I will not let betrayal break me. I will not let him or anyone else define my worth. One day he will realize the power of what he lost. One day I will rise and he will fall. It was a promise not fueled by anger, but by purpose. She didn't need to plan how, only that she would succeed. She had learned the most important lesson. Power and patience were the ultimate revenge. The months and years passed. Maya's business expanded. She became an influencer in the entrepreneurial world. Her social media presence reaching thousands of people who admired her for her intelligence, strength, and poise. Invitations to speak at conferences, features in magazines, and collaborations with prominent brands became routine. She had built a life Alex could never have imagined, and yet she never underestimated the moment when their paths would cross again. She knew it would happen. The world had a way of bringing the past forward, and when it did, she would be ready. Every skill she honed, every connection she made, every ounce of her energy had a single purpose: to reclaim her dignity, to expose lies, and to ensure that the boy who had ruined her would pay not in petty humiliation, but in the undeniable collapse of his carefully constructed world. Maya's transformation was complete. The timid, heartbroken girl from Riverview High had vanished. In her place stood a woman of vision, intelligence, and unyielding determination. Her past was no longer a weakness, it was a weapon, and with that realization, she finally allowed herself a small, private smile. She was ready. The world had tested her, betrayed her, and humiliated her, but it had also forged her. The vow she had whispered in the quiet of her first lonely apartment was no longer a whisper. It was a roar, echoing in every decision she made, every project she undertook, and every strategic move she plotted. Rise, rebuild, reclaim, and when the time comes, justice will be mine. Maya Collins was no longer a victim, she was a force. and nothing, not betrayal, not heartbreak, not the world itself could stand in her way. 5 years had passed since Maya Collins had walked away from Riverview High, from Alex, from everything she thought she knew about life and love. In that time, she had built a world that was entirely her own. Her apartment in the city had become an office. Her late nights of studying had turned into networking events and boardroom meetings. And the shy, heartbroken girl who had left high school in tears was gone. In her place stood a poised, confident, and strategic woman whose presence demanded respect. Her phone buzzed on the glass table of her office. It was a notification from one of her business partners. Invitation, gala, for the Innovative Entrepreneurs Awards. Key guest, Alex Reynolds. Maya's hand paused over the keyboard. Alex Reynolds. The name alone sent a chill down her spine. The boy who had shattered her heart, humiliated her publicly, and destroyed her teenage reputation was now some kind of celebrated entrepreneur. Apparently, he had been successful, at least on the surface. Her lips curved into a small, controlled smile. She sipped her coffee and leaned back in her chair, letting the tension build. The years had been kind to her, but she would admit there was satisfaction in knowing she was no longer the girl who had crumbled at betrayal. She had transformed her pain into power, and now the moment of reckoning was approaching. The gala was everything Maya expected: glittering chandeliers, the murmur of wealth, ambition, and social influence. Women in flowing dresses and men in tailored suits filled the room, champagne glasses in hand, voices soft and rehearsed. Maya walked in with measured confidence. Every step, every glance, every smile was precise, a calculated display of authority and charm. She had mastered the art of influence, and tonight she would use it to her advantage. And then she saw him. Alex Reynolds, taller than she remembered, confident in his posture, exuding charisma that had once captivated her heart. He had no idea she would be here, no inkling that the girl he had humiliated years ago was now the woman orchestrating her own empire. He scanned the room, smiling at familiar faces, laughing at jokes, utterly unaware that the past had followed him into this very moment. Maya let her eyes linger on him, memorizing his expressions, the way he carried himself, the arrogance that had once seemed charming. The feeling that welled up inside her was not anger, not hate, but pure, focused purpose. She would not let this encounter be chaotic. She would let it be precise, deliberate, and decisive. The night moved forward. Maya circulated through the crowd, introducing herself to industry leaders, shaking hands, exchanging business cards. She wasn't here to confront Alex directly, at least, not yet. She was here to observe, to learn, to understand how he had built his image so that she could dismantle it with careful strategy. When a mutual acquaintance introduced them, Maya extended her hand, her smile flawless. "Alex," she said softly, her voice warm but edged with a controlled calm. "It's been a long time." Alex blinked. Recognition didn't come immediately. "Maya, wait. Maya Collins." His voice carried both surprise and a faint nervousness he tried to hide. She let the pause stretch, savoring it. "Yes, it's me." He laughed awkwardly, trying to mask the tension. "Wow, you look different. You've really changed." Maya smiled, almost innocently. "I've had time to grow. You know how life can be." Alex's smile faltered, just for a fraction of a second. That fraction was enough. Over the next few weeks, Maya put her plan into motion. She wasn't going to attack him openly. That would be reckless. She was going to dismantle his public image piece by piece, using the very tools he had once used to build his empire: reputation, influence, and social perception. She hired a team of digital consultants, investigators, and PR specialists. Every public move Alex made was monitored. Every online post, business deal, and partnership was scrutinized for inconsistencies, mismanagement, and unethical practices. The more they dug, the more cracks appeared. Alex's success, it turned out, was a house of cards. Maya watched the pattern emerge like a strategist observing her battlefield. Mistakes he thought were invisible became visible through her research. Minor infractions, financial missteps, and questionable partnerships could now be highlighted, framed, and presented to the public in a way that was irrefutable. But Maya didn't stop there. She began posting her own successes online carefully. Curated achievements that hinted at competence, authority, and intelligence far beyond Alex's sphere. The subtle comparison did its work. Where Alex had relied on charm and perceived dominance, Maya relied on substance, proof, and evidence of real achievement. Then came the first direct confrontation, social media collaboration. Alex had no idea he was stepping into her sphere. Maya made it appear coincidental, a meeting for mutual business benefit. Cameras rolled, the public observed, and she subtly highlighted his errors in front of colleagues and media. He stumbled over explanations, trying to mask his incompetence. His polished, confident facade cracked under her calm scrutiny. The humiliation was sweet, but Maya didn't gloat. She allowed it to be clinical, strategic. Revenge, she had learned, was never about emotion. It was about control. Months passed, and the narrative began to shift. Social media influencers and industry insiders noticed Alex's inconsistencies. His business practices questioned, his personal arrogance exposed. Meanwhile, Maya's presence grew in parallel, subtle, unthreatening, yet impossible to ignore. By the time the public realized what was happening, the damage was done. Alex's reputation began to crumble, and Maya's rise was undeniable. Every encounter with him became a reminder of the past. But she never let the personal betray the strategic. In boardrooms, at gala events, in interviews, she maintained poise. She smiled politely while presenting facts that painted him in a negative light. She watched as his credibility slipped, as people who had once admired him began to question his integrity, and through it all, Maya felt a satisfaction deeper than anger, the satisfaction of justice. Finally, the moment came when Alex confronted her directly. He had realized, belatedly, who she was and what she had orchestrated. "Why are you doing this?" he demanded, his voice rising in a mix of fear and disbelief. "I don't understand, this isn't fair." Maya looked at him calmly, letting the silence stretch. "Fair isn't the point, Alex. Truth is. Accountability is. You destroyed my life once. Now, the world will see the consequences of your choices." The look on his face, a mix of panic, realization, and helplessness, was a culmination of years of careful planning, patience, and strategy. Maya had not just returned, she had returned in full control. Her revenge wasn't chaos. It wasn't shouting or violence. It was precision. It was influence. It was a mirror reflecting back the consequences of his actions. And as she walked away from him that day, she felt the final, undeniable power of her transformation. The girl he had once humiliated had become the woman who would define their shared story, and it would not end with him. The world had shifted beneath Alex Reynolds' feet, and Maya Collins watched from a place of quiet triumph. It wasn't gloating that filled her, it was peace. Years of pain, humiliation, and relentless preparation had led her here. She had taken back control of her life, her reputation, and her narrative. The boy who had destroyed her teenage years was no longer untouchable, and the woman he had underestimated had risen, unstoppable. The final confrontation had been indirect. As it should be, Alex's business deals collapsed under scrutiny, partnerships dissolved, and social media exposed the flaws he had once hidden behind charm and arrogance. Every time he tried to explain, to defend himself, the evidence she had quietly collected, the narratives she had built, spoke louder than any excuses. Public perception had turned, and Alex was left struggling to maintain a life built on deception. Maya didn't seek revenge for the sake of anger. She had learned early on that anger is fleeting, but strategy and patience endure. Her satisfaction came not from seeing him suffer, but from seeing justice delivered calmly, cleanly, and inevitably. She had turned betrayal into power, humiliation into growth, and heartbreak into mastery of her own destiny. That evening, in the quiet of her apartment, Maya looked at her reflection in the window. The city lights shimmered behind her, but all she saw was herself, strong, confident, and in control. She remembered the girl who had left Riverview High, crying and betrayed, unsure of her worth. She had been that girl once, but that girl was gone. She picked up her phone and scrolled through messages, invitations, and congratulations from colleagues and friends she had met over the years. Her empire wasn't built overnight, but every step had been deliberate, every decision fueled by a determination that had started in a small apartment years ago. She had survived, she had grown, and she had conquered the past. A soft knock at her door pulled her from her thoughts. It was a neighbor, holding a basket of homemade cookies. "I thought you might like a snack," she said, smiling warmly. Maya smiled back, polite but distracted. She realized then what she had truly gained: peace, freedom, the ability to walk into her future without fear, without the shadow of the past looming over her. Revenge had not been about destruction, had been about reclaiming herself. Later that night, Maya sat on her balcony, the cool wind brushing her face. She whispered to herself, almost as a promise, "I will never let anyone define my worth again. I will never let betrayal break me, and I will always rise." For the first time in years, she allowed herself to feel unburdened. Her past had been painful, yes, but it had shaped her into someone who could withstand anything. And while Alex had learned the consequences of his choices, Maya had learned something far more important. Resilience is the ultimate revenge. She didn't need applause, recognition, or public approval. She had already won the battle that mattered most, the battle for her own life, her own dignity, and her own peace of mind. As the city hummed beneath her, she smiled. The future was hers, bright, untouchable, and entirely within her control. Maya Collins had walked through heartbreak, betrayal, and despair and emerged unshakable. She was no longer a victim. She was a survivor, a conqueror, and a woman who had learned the greatest lesson of all. The power to reclaim your life is stronger than the pain anyone can inflict on you. And with that lesson, she closed her eyes, letting the cool night wind carry away the last whispers of her old life. Tomorrow was hers. The past was hers to learn from, but it no longer held her captive. She had risen, and nothing could stop her now.